It's time for the Tom Sumner Program. The Tom Sumner Program is a live variety show with music, comedy and special guest interviews every Monday through Friday. The Tom Sumner Program. Old-fashioned radio for a new generation. Our theme music is Fruit of the Louvre, provided by Flint composer-producer Howard Eddy. Stay tuned, because it's on now. Old-fashioned radio for a new generation. The Tom Sumner Program.
But first, the news.
10 million in the crosshairs of Hurricane Florence. I'm Sean Cantwell. Hurricane Florence put a corridor of more than 10 million people in the crosshairs Wednesday as the monster storm closed in on the Carolinas. Uncertainty over its projected path spreading worry across a widening swath of the southeast. Faced with new forecasts that showed a more southerly threat, Georgia's governor joined his counterparts in Virginia and North and South Carolina in declaring a state of emergency, and some residents who thought they were safely out of range boarded up their homes. The National Hurricane Center's best guess was that Florence would blow ashore as early as Friday afternoon around the North Carolina-South Carolina line, then push its rainy way westward with the potential for catastrophic inland flooding. Florence's winds in the afternoon were down to 120 miles an hour from a high of 140 miles an hour, and the Category 4 storm fell to a Category 3, with a further slow weakening expected as the storm nears the coast. But authorities warned it will still be an extremely dangerous hurricane. Tropical storm force winds extended 195 miles from Florence's center, and hurricane force winds reached out 70 miles. The National Weather Service said 5.25 million people live in areas under hurricane warnings or watches, and 4.9 million live in places covered by tropical storm warnings and watches. The Hurricane Center said Florence will approach the coast Friday and linger for a while before rolling ashore. Meanwhile, Congress is moving to avert a legislative disaster that could lead to a partial government shutdown just weeks before the November midterm elections. Senators approved a $147 billion package Wednesday night to fund the Energy Department, veterans programs, and the legislative branch. The bill is the first of three spending packages Congress hopes to approve this month to avoid a government shutdown when the new budget year begins October 1st. The measure, which represents a compromise between House and Senate negotiators, was approved 92-5. The House is set to vote on the package on Thursday. If all three compromise spending packages are approved by both chambers and signed by President Trump, they would account for nearly 90% of annual spending, including the military and most civilian agencies. The U.S. may have reclaimed the title of the world's biggest oil producer sooner than expected. The U.S. Energy Information Administration said Wednesday that America likely surpassed Russia in June and August after jumping over Saudi Arabia earlier this year. The agency says that conclusion is based on preliminary estimates. If those estimates are right, it would mark the first time since 1973 that the U.S. has led the world in output, according to government figures. In local news, a medical examiner believes 2-month-old Elijah Frierson died of a skull fracture caused by blunt force trauma, meaning hits to his head. His mother, 28-year-old Khalees Clemens, was arrested Tuesday and charged with his murder 6 months to the day after he was found dead on March 11th. She appeared before a judge for arraignment Wednesday. Police responded to the family's residence in Buena Vista Township March 11th after Clemens found her son unresponsive and not breathing. She claimed to have fallen asleep with him and found him dead when she awoke. Police launched an investigation after noticing some suspicious injuries on Frierson. That led to Clemens facing a charge of open murder. A 26-year-old man was shot and killed in broad daylight on Saginaw's west side Wednesday afternoon. He was shot around 1 p.m. in front of 713 North Mason Street between Throop and Hayes Streets, a few blocks from Covenant Healthcare Hospital. An ambulance took him to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. His identity was not released while authorities worked to contact his family. Police did not immediately say whether anyone was arrested. The case is Saginaw's 13th homicide of 2018. Authorities say a 16-year-old girl has died after being stabbed by another teenage girl during a fight inside a high school classroom in Warren. Police Commissioner Bill Dwyer said the girl was stabbed twice in the chest Wednesday morning at Fitzgerald High School and was pronounced dead about an hour later. Police say the 16-year-old victim and the 17-year-old suspect had both dated the same boy. The school was initially placed on lockdown, but students have since been released. In sports, the Houston Astros swept the series at Comerica Park for the first time, wrapping up a 3-game set with a 5-4 victory over the Tigers on Wednesday. If you're planning to escape from a burglary via bike, downing a case of beer and a bottle of Jaeger beforehand will likely make it difficult. That story in the forecast in 60 seconds.
Support for the Tom Sumner Program comes from Hamady Complete Food Center. The same family values and community spirit that founded Hamady's back in 1911 and sent trucks of food to sit-down strikers in 1937 is back, Hamady sacks and all. Hamady Complete Food Center is located at 2629 West Pearson Road near Clio Road in Flint and on Facebook.
Since April of 2008, Tom Sumner has produced a daily talk show promoting civilized conversation about politics, public affairs, pop culture, and the arts. From intelligent interviews, forums, and armchair politics, to live musical performances and previews of Flint Symphony Orchestra concerts.
Hello, I'm Maestro Enrique Di Meg wishing Tom a happy 10th anniversary. Congratulations on your success, my friend.
The Tom Sumner Program, old-fashioned radio for a new generation. 10 years and more to come.
A burglar downed 24 bottles of beer and a bottle of Jägermeister before he tried to escape from police on a bicycle. Jai Kennedy, who had also taken cocaine, was chased by police for a mile as he made a number of U-turns to shake them off. The 24-year-old eventually crashed into a police car and fell off, ending the chase in Birmingham, England. When quizzed by police, Kennedy said he'd been recently released from prison and was bored. Mostly cloudy today with a high of 79 and a low of 63. That's the latest. I'm Sean Cantwell.
The Tom Sumner Program. Old-fashioned radio for a new generation.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you're listening to The Tom Sumner Show. Send your donations today. Check out the website for more details.
Stream us live weekdays from 9 a.m. to noon at TomSumnerProgram.com, made possible by listeners like you.
The Tom Sumner Program. Old-fashioned radio for a new generation.
On the radio? Right there, popping his gas. Oh my gosh, that's him!
I got some friends in some low places. We on a first name basis with the basis in the hottest band around. And you can call me, but I'll be somewhere on a beach with a drink in my hand, barefoot, blue jeans. You bring that wagon wheel, we'll cross the Florida Georgia line, and we can sip on sangria and eat some chicken fried bread solo cup. You outdid yourself, 'cause it's a Friday night feeling. Why don't you take me downtown? I'm singing, ooh, ooh, can you feel it in the air? I'm singing, ooh, 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 country music everywhere. I'm singing, till I, till I, till I, till I, till I, then play that radio top down. Here we go. So you like day drinking? Well, I like you in tequila. There must be something in the water that's making me feeling like I got a good push. A rewind, play it again. I want crazy, baby, but I'm gonna stand by my man. Before he cheats on me with some blind from a band. Why don't you love me like you mean it? Or do you not understand that I'm a perfect song? You ain't no Tennessee whiskey, and this is my church. Go on and hurry up and miss me. I'm singing, ooh, 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 can you feel it in the air? I'm singing, ooh, 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 country music everywhere. I'm singing, till I, till I, till I, till I, till I, till I, then play that radio top down. Here we go. North to the south, to the east, to the west. Put your hand on your heart and your hat on your chest and salute to the song of the land of the free, the country, the people, the heart of Dixie. Ooh, 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 can you feel it in the air? I'm singing, ooh, 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 country music everywhere. I'm singing, till I, till I, till I, till I, till I, till I, then play that radio top down. Here we go. Ooh, 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 can you feel it in the air? I'm singing, ooh, 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 country music everywhere. I'm singing, till I, till I, till I, till I, till I, till I, then play that radio top down. Here we go.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm Tom Sumner, my co-host and associate producer Andrea Sutton. Still not back yet, but will be soon. Thanks to Sean Cantwell, who's standing by at the news desk at the top of the hour with 5 minutes of news. He's following for you each hour today on the Tom Sumner Program. And that music that we opened up with was from Paulina Jane. She was made in Detroit and now a Nashville recording artist. She's going to be my guest during the third hour today, or the third half of our 3-hour tour, as I like to call it. And she's going to talk about, that song was Country Music's Everywhere. And, if it's hailing from Detroit, you can bet it's everywhere. She has a new single, Love's Gonna Always Win, which has racked up more than 380,000 streams and has been added to 62 radio stations in 19 countries. She's won a lot of awards. She's a rising star in country music and hails from Detroit. She'll be joining me during the third hour of the show today. And I'm also going to be talking with, on the show today, a New York Times Book Review Editor's Choice that's new in paperback. The female-driven antebellum-era novel that has captivated critics, book clubs, and readers across the country, called The Underground River. The author of that book, Martha Conway, joins me during the second hour of the show. But coming up first is a real interesting conversation with Gail Honeyman, who had a novel came out in hardback in May last year, but it's just come out in paperback, and it's headed to the big screen courtesy of Reese Witherspoon, who says this is beautifully written and incredibly funny, and it became one of her favorite books, and she bought the rights to it, and she's producing a major motion picture based on the novel. Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. Gail Honeyman is the author's name, and she is from Glasgow, Scotland, and she's going to be joining us by phone coming up really in just a few minutes. We'll take a break, and we'll come back with Gail Honeyman, author of Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine, out in paperback, coming to a big screen near you sometime in the future. Actually, there's no timeline set yet, but it's going to be an interesting conversation with this first-time author. It reminds me of David Baldacci when he wrote his first novel, Absolute Power, and it got picked up and became a motion picture. Everything he's written since then has been a bestseller, and this is a New York Times bestseller already, since it was out in hardback. But as I mentioned, it's out in paperback now. Coming up next Tuesday on the show, Bobby Clayton Walton is a Democrat who is challenging incumbent Genesee County Commissioner David Martin, the Republican, in November's election. They are going to appear jointly on the show, both of them together, and they'll meet face-to-face in a conversation with me about the election, about the County Board of Commissioners, etc. I hope that will be the first of a series. If you are part of a campaign, part of the election process coming up November 6th, between now and then, I would like to invite any candidates that want to be on the show, but also if you'd like to come on the show with the person that you're running against and do a little side-by-side comparison, a little candidate-to-candidate conversation, I would love to include you in this series between now and November 6th. If you're listening to us on WFOV, Our Voices Radio, 92.1 FM in Flint, they are a broadcast service of the Odyssey House of Flint and Spectacle Productions and our good friend Paul Herring. And I just want to say thank you to them. We're going to be letting them squeeze a few words in edgewise here in a moment. And if you're streaming us at TomSumnerProgram.com, we have some messages as well. As long as I mentioned the website, we repeat the show all day after we do it live from 9 a.m. to noon each day. And so you can really catch up on anything, anytime, by going to TomSumnerProgram.com. And 92.1 FM repeats our show at 9 p.m. weekdays. So if you miss the show in the morning and there's somebody that you wanted to hear, whether, it's Paulina Jane or Martha Conway or Gail Honeyman coming up in just a couple of minutes, you can tune in tonight. So lots of ways to listen to the show, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for your support, but we can always use more support. So please spread the word, and you can see what's coming up on the show usually by checking my Facebook page. So with that, we'll take a short break. We'll come back with author Gail Honeyman talking about her book, Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. We'll be right back.
The Tom Sumner Program. Old-fashioned radio for a new generation.
Crime Stoppers is offering up to $2,500 for information that helps lead to the felony arrest of the person responsible for killing Sidney Pettigrew. On Tuesday, May 1st, 2018, 51-year-old Sidney Pettigrew was shot and killed while working out at the Rock Fitness Center in the 2500 block of South Saginaw Street on Flint South Side. Submit information anonymously at p3tips.com or by calling 1-800-422-JAIL. Remember, your voice matters.
Discoveries. They happen when we least expect them, in places we thought we knew. And discoveries have a way of teaching us a little more about ourselves along the way. Welcome to Flint and Genesee County, where up north meets down south. Home to Michigan's largest county park system and a vibrant culture. A place filled with discoveries we've yet to make, throughout acres of beautiful lakes, wetlands, and woods, and in the diverse city beyond. Where the uplifting melodies of gospel choirs fill the air, where the work of renowned artists color the galleries and museums, where the fresh fruits and vegetables at the downtown farmers market awaken our senses, and where the cultural center and planetarium broaden our view of the world. Let's spend a few days enjoying the wonders of Flint and Genesee County, where the joy of discovery is pure Michigan. Your trip begins at michigan.org.
East Village Magazine is the monthly neighborhood magazine read all over Flint. With support from grants, donations, and advertisers, East Village Magazine's talented local writers give you an in-depth look at local news, issues, and people that make Flint, Flint. Copies of East Village Magazine are available at many of your favorite shops and restaurants around Flint or online at eastvillagemagazine.org. East Village Magazine, community-focused and community-supported.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer.
When I grow up, I want to be a glass countertop in a new home.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's best birthday present.
When I grow up, I want to be a football stadium.
When I grow up, I want to be a warm fleece on a cold day.
When I grow up, I want to be a fancy backsplash.
I want to be a bike that races around the country.
When I grow up, I want to be a bench on a forest trail.
I want to be a rocking chair on a sunny porch.
I want to be a skyscraper.
I want to be
When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. A public service advertisement brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
Music is a bridge between the material and the spiritual. My name is Harvey Lauer, and I'm 82. As a blind person, you have to be aware that nobody can tell you what you can or can't do. You really have to try things. My folks got me a little radio in 1940, and that was the best Christmas present I ever got. When I was 11 years old is when I started to play music, play the piano, and then the accordion, and then the cello. My wife, who was also blind, was a good cook. When she died, that's when I started Meals on Wheels. America, let's do lunch.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
The Tom Sumner Program. Old Old-fashioned radio for a new generation.
Hey, this is Steve from the Nashville office. You're listening to the Tom Sumner Program.
Stream us live weekdays from 9 a.m. to noon at TomSumnerProgram.com, made possible by listeners like you.
The Tom Sumner Program. Old-fashioned radio for a new generation.
And welcome back, everybody. This is the Tom Sumner Program. My guest this hour is the author of a book that's headed for the big screen. It's out now in paperback called Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. And the author, Gail Honeyman, joins me by phone. Gail, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tom. Thanks so much for having me on the show. It's a pleasure.
Gail, I want to ask you about the title because at first blush it seems a little telling, like maybe it's a spoiler alert.
Well, I think you've absolutely hit the nail on the head. She, in fact, is not completely fine. So yeah.
And also, I wanted to ask about the name itself. Eleanor Oliphant it seems a little quirky. And how much does that inform us about the protagonist we're going to meet?
Well, that's a great question. Names are so difficult when you're writing, and I find it very, very challenging to come up with the right name for the right character. And it's not a very scientific process. It's more of a gut feel or a visceral thing. So I can't remember how I got to the name finally of Eleanor Oliphant, but as soon as I did, I knew, yes, that she can't be called anything else other than that. When you have the wrong name, it feels wrong physically. It's like wearing shoes that are too tight or something. And then when you find the right name for a character, it's like kicking off the shoes and putting on your slippers. So it's exactly as you said it, but I love that name for her because it's an unusual name. It's quite a quirky name. It's a little bit old-fashioned, maybe.
Yeah.
It's got a kind of humorous ring to it, Oliphant, elephant. And then one of the themes of the book is loneliness, and it had that Eleanor Rigby, Eleanor Oliphant sort of chime with it. So, yeah, does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense, and I hadn't made the Eleanor Rigby comparison in my head, but it's a good one. But there was something else that was kind of interesting about this as I was looking through it. I couldn't help thinking, and forgive me if from time to time, Gail, if I call you Eleanor, because I couldn't help thinking that Eleanor Oliphant was a great name for an author, and Gail Honeyman was a good name for an everyday person like Eleanor is.
Yeah, I guess they're both quite unusual names in their own way, aren't they? Yeah.
How much of Eleanor is Gail and how much of Gail is Eleanor?
I mean, I would say very little. It's not an autobiographical novel in any sense, which I think people will be quite relieved to hear when you find out about the kind of life that Eleanor's lived and some of the experiences she's had. But for me, that's part of that. For me personally, one of the challenges I love about writing is to write someone completely different to myself, and to try and see the world through completely different eyes. That's part of the fun of it all and the challenge of it all, rather than write someone that's very similar to myself.
There's an interesting element of loneliness that runs through this story, and it's portrayed in a way that literally everyone can relate to in some way. And if we're not feeling that ourselves occasionally, we're brushing elbows with people who are every day without realizing it, maybe. How much of that is, number one, why you wrote the book, but number two, brought about by the lifestyle that we live these days, where we tend to close ourselves up in our quarters, and what contact we have is electronic and not face to face.
So the idea for the novel came to me a few years ago now, when I read a newspaper article about loneliness. And I don't know how things are in the States, but here in the UK, certainly a few years ago, it wasn't a topic that received much coverage or was discussed much in the public realm at all. And on occasions where it was, it's generally in the context of older people, and that's obviously a huge issue too. But this particular article included an interview with a young person, a woman in her 20s, and she said she had an apartment and a job, and she lived in a big city, and she said, I leave work on Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. and I don't see or speak to another human being until I go back to work again on Monday morning. And I was so struck by that, because it was so unusual to hear a young person articulate that experience. And also it's a very different experience of an urban 20-something professional to the one that's often portrayed in the media. Life's just one big party and you're out every night having a fabulous social time. I'm sure life is like that for lots of people, but also for lots and lots of people it isn't, and not by choice and through no fault of their own. So I was starting to think about how someone could find themselves in that set of circumstances, not by choice and through no fault of their own, that led me to finally develop the character of Eleanor Oliphant and then the story of Eleanor Oliphant. And I think that as it happens, here in the UK, just over the course of a few years, loneliness is a much bigger topic now, receiving a lot more interest. It's the subject of medical research and sociological research, and we've even got a government minister for loneliness now in the UK government, appointed just a few months ago. So
Really?
It's become an area that's receiving a lot more attention, and rightfully so. Yeah.
That's fascinating that the awareness has grown enough to the point where there's actually sort of a ministry for it.
That's right, and a lot of the research has shown that. I think we could all imagine what the negative social impacts of loneliness might be, but some of the research has shown there are actually physical as well as mental health impacts of loneliness. So it's been treated with seriousness and being researched, and we're looking at policy responses to it. So that's all very encouraging, I think.
Now, this book is or has been described as a debut novel. Gail, what's the difference between a debut novel and a first novel?
I think there's no difference. I think they're the same thing. So this is my first novel. It took me a long time to start writing, but this is the end result of my first novel.
And I have to ask, because this has gotten all kinds of acclaim, including becoming Reese Witherspoon's book club pick. And she bought the rights and is planning to make a major motion picture out of this that she will produce. How did that come about, and how surprising was that for you?
It was incredibly surprising. It was an email that I had to read many times before it sank in. So, it's very exciting. And I can't wait to see what happens next. My understanding is these things can take a long time to come to fruition, but what an absolute thrill to see your words translated into a movie. I can't wait to see what happens with it.
Some writers are very concerned that when that happens, that the story will be altered in some way, or it will, I don't know, be changed somehow into a more Hollywood story. Do you have those concerns?
The main feeling that I have is just anticipation and excitement. I think, a film, a movie, and a book are two different forms, and so necessarily they will be two different things. I'm so excited to see how it translates. And the other thing is, one of the things that I find fascinating is to watch how actors inhabit characters and bring them to life, and so to watch a character that I have created be portrayed on screen, I think will be absolutely fascinating. So my main feeling towards it is just anticipation, excitement.
Well, I'm anxious for you because I think it would be, because I can't help but imagine that when you're writing the story and developing a character like Eleanor Oliphant, that you have a picture of her in your mind. And it's going to be interesting, for you to see a person, a three-dimensional version of this picture in your head and how much it compares. I'd like to be a fly on the wall when you see this movie.
It's a funny thing because with all of my characters, I feel like I know everything about them. Like I know how many cavities they have in their teeth. I know, whether they wear down one side of the shoes more than the other, or the heels of the shoes. I know what brand of shampoo they use, every little detail, but I don't really see a face, if that makes sense.
It does. It does make sense.
And so I would be a terrible casting director if I could work in movies. So I'm just intrigued to see. It's a totally different process because I'm not imagining a face. That maybe sounds strange, and it's fun when I read other people's work, other people's novels. I find it really fun to sort of mentally cast them. But with my own work, it's not something that I do. So I'm just intrigued, very intrigued.
Now you mentioned that you had written an article about loneliness. So you've done other writing besides this first novel.
Actually, I'd read the article. Sorry, Tom, it wasn't. I didn't write it. It was one.
I thought you said you wrote it. Have you done other writing, or did you just one day decide I'm going to write a novel?
I wrote when I was a child and loved it, and I always wanted to be a writer, to write. And then when I went to university, I stopped. And then in the intervening years, it was always in the back of my mind, like one day I'll go back to that, and one day I will try and write a novel just to see if I can. But then it was that sort of cliche of my 40th birthday on the horizon where I thought, I should stop daydreaming about doing this, and if I'm serious about trying it, I should just give it a try. And so that's when I started to write Eleanor Oliphant.
Now, you graduated, you mentioned when you went to university, you graduated from the universities of Glasgow and Oxford.
That's right.
What were you going to be when you grew up?
I guess I wasn't entirely sure. I studied languages. I studied French. So that's a great subject because it gives you quite a few options. But I think maybe like quite a lot of young people, I didn't have a particular goal in mind when I started at university. But I ended up working in economic development and then higher education after that, and enjoyed that very much.
And how was there was something you said that caught my attention because I often ask writers, what comes first? The story and characters it's likely to happen to, or the character and things that are likely to happen to them. And it sounds like for you, it was the character first.
Very much so, and it's a completely character-driven novel. In terms of plot, actually not very much happens in the novel, and certainly it's not a roller coaster ride of thrills and spills of dramatic incidents. It's entirely character driven, and so before I started writing at all, I spent a long time developing the character of Eleanor and making sure I had that absolutely clear and having that voice completely clear, because in a character driven novel, if that doesn't work, then the whole thing doesn't work really. So for me, it's definitely character driven rather than plot driven, I think.
I think what's interesting about this and about that answer is when you default to books that have a lot of thrills and spills and ups and downs and kind of a roller coaster ride of a story, that's one way to go. But the other way to go, which I think you've done brilliantly from all of the praise that this book has gotten, is not the story that will never happen to any of us that we love to get lost in and fantasize with, but the story that could happen to anyone and maybe everyone sometimes.
Without giving anything away or spoiling the plot, there are things that have happened to Eleanor that I hope don't happen to anyone. She has quite a dark backstory. But yeah, I think if you, as a reader, if you connect with a character, then you'll certainly I do this as a reader. If I connect with a character, I'm happy to go anywhere with them. I'm happy to go with them while they get their hair cut, or while they go to drink a cup of coffee in a cafe. Things that actually sound quite dull, but if you are engaged with that character, you're happy to go and do those things with them. So does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit of the TV show Seinfeld, where they said it was a show about nothing.
But if you're engaged with the characters, you're happy to just hang out with them, I suppose. And conversely, if you haven't connected with a character, maybe it's harder to care what happens to them.
Now, this the writing process can be one that's somewhat solitary. Now that this book has gotten a lot of attention, and you're doing interviews like this, and doing, I imagine, lots of book events and signings and so on. Do you enjoy interacting with people and the business part of marketing and promoting this book, or are you a little more solitary than that?
It's quite an odd thing writing, because if you're lucky enough to have people read your book, then it's two very discrete things. As you say, you spend a lot of time working completely alone inside your own head, and then you spend time meeting lots and lots of new people. And they're two quite disparate things. But something that I never thought about, because I didn't actually have any expectations from my book when I was writing it beyond just seeing whether I could write a novel. Whether I could get to the end of 80,000 words. Is that something that I could do, never having done it before? And I never dreamed that it would be published, and then it would be published in different countries, and that I would be able to talk to people about it. So still, it's been out for a year now, from hardback, and now the paperback's out. It's still a real thrill to meet readers. And I'm still a bit taken aback when I meet someone at a signing or something, and they say, "Oh, you know that bit when Eleanor and Raymond go to visit Raymond's mum in her house?" And I still think, "Oh, how do you know about that?" Because it's for such a long time, it's just a private thing in your own head, and no one else knows about it. And it's still an absolute thrill to find out other people now know that story too, and know about those characters, and have connected with them or have opinions about them. It's such a privilege to talk to readers about it, and pretty much every event I've done, I've come away from it with something new to think about, or a new aspect of the story or the characters to consider that has resulted from other people reading it now, and in that sense it's a shared thing, and that's just wonderful. That's just an absolutely wonderful experience. So, yeah, I love that.
I was going to ask you about that. If someone who's read the book, and you get a chance to talk to them, if they come back with something from their perspective that you didn't even realize was part of the book or the story.
Yes. That's an absolute, the shared, it's a sort of a co-creation then, that's the whole joy of it, that it becomes, it's a shared experience from writer to reader, and then between readers as well, that everyone creates a new novel by bringing their own experience to their reading of it, and it's just such a privilege to be a tiny part of that. So yeah, that's an absolute joy, really.
There have been a number of praises about this book, and one of them is that it had a whip-smart wit. And there are some very humorous things. And who was it? NPR said deadpan, heartbreaking, and humorous all at once. This would be a very dark story without some bits of humor, wouldn't it?
Yes. Those are very nice things to have said about the book. Well, I tried very hard to balance humour and darkness because I wanted to write a realistic novel as far as possible, and I think life is like that. Even in the darkest times, even in our most challenging moments, we still find some little grain of humour, something to laugh at, even if the humour is very dark sometimes. It's kind of one of the things that helps us survive that, I think. And so I wanted to try and balance the darkness and the humour, and it's difficult because you don't want to. It's a difficult line to walk, so I worked very hard on that, and I didn't want the reader ever to laugh at Eleanor, because she's the heroine of the story. She's a survivor of the story, and so I wanted to make, as far as possible, to make sure that the humour is not at her expense.
Yeah, I've always said that it's at the darkest times that we need humor the most.
Yeah, I think it's a very human thing, and it's something that helps us survive it, I think. So I did try very hard to balance that, and Eleanor's never self-pitying either, that's something that I wanted to include in her characterization, so that I wanted readers to empathise with her, and humour was part of that, but as I say, not at her expense. We're kind of laughing with her, or in an empathetic way. It's not mocking humour, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
More with author Gail Honeyman. And we're going to take a short break, let our broadcast partner squeeze a few words in edgewise. If you're streaming us at TomSumnerProgram.com, we have some messages as well. You're listening to us either online or at 92.1 FM WFOV, Our Voices Radio in Flint. We'll have the rest of my conversation with Gail coming up right after this break.
The Tom Sumner Program. Old-fashioned radio for a new generation.
The Tom Sumner Program is made possible with support from Flint Comics and Entertainment, the world's leading free comics and entertainment newspaper at flintcomics@gmail.com.
Imagine a journey down a picturesque river. Imagine your Flint River, 142 miles of recreation, natural beauty, and precious resources. The Flint River is a vital resource that is available for all to use and enjoy. The river and its ecosystem provide unlimited recreational opportunities and natural beauty while supporting wildlife in a vibrant landscape. We all have a responsibility to protect and preserve this precious resource. Learn more at flintriver.org or call the Flint River Watershed Coalition at 810-767-6490.
Flint Community Schools encourages area families to enroll today for the 2018-19 school year. Reinforce the importance of a high-quality education to your child by enrolling early at Flint Community Schools. To enroll, visit the administration building at 923 East Kersley Street in Flint, which is open year-round. For more information or answers to common questions, visit flintschools.org or call 810-760-1000.
The Tom Sumner Program. Old-fashioned radio for a new generation.
Technical assistance for the Tom Sumner Program is provided by Swiftlet Technology, engineering and IT services at swiftlet.technology.
The Tom Sumner Program. Old-fashioned radio for a new generation.
Since April of 2008, Tom Sumner has produced a daily talk show promoting civilized conversation about politics, public affairs, pop culture, and the arts. From intelligent interviews, forums, and armchair politics, to live musical performances and previews of Flint Symphony Orchestra concerts.
Hello, I'm Maestro Ricky DeMeg wishing Tom a happy 10th anniversary. Congratulations on your success, my friend.
The Tom Sumner Program, old-fashioned radio for a new generation. 10 years and more to come.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzz driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You could kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says, "I'm a catch," more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
The Tom Sumner Program. Old-fashioned radio for a new generation.
Hi, this is Gretchen Whitmer, and you're listening to the Tom Sumner Program.
Stream us live weekdays from 9 a.m. to noon at TomSumnerProgram.com, made possible by listeners like you.
The Tom Sumner Program. Old-fashioned radio for a new generation.
More with author Gail Honeyman is straight ahead. Gail, what was the writing process like for you? Are you a very disciplined writer, or did you find yourself binge writing?
That's a good phrase. Well, I had a full-time day job when I wrote this novel, so it was really just fitting it in when I could. So it was mostly getting up very early in the morning and doing a bit before I had to get ready for work. And then in my lunch break, I would go to a cafe near my office and I would work there. So it was sort of little and often. And in the end, it took about 2.5 years to finish it, doing it that way. So the good thing about doing it that way is that I don't have any special requirements or any, I don't need a special paper and pen or absolute silence or anything like that. And I can work in cafes or on a train or, anywhere you get spare time, really.
We always picture writers going off to a cabin somewhere tucked away in the woods and emerging.
Everyone's different, I guess. That's the whole joy of it. That there's no right or wrong way to do it. Just whatever works for you. So yeah.
Now, with the success of this book, is there do you feel a certain amount of pressure to write another book?
I'm working on a new book right now, and I guess I'm just trying to focus on writing the best book that I can and block out any potential pressure as far as possible. I loved writing Another Elephant. I loved working with that voice and those characters. But I'm really enjoying working on something completely new now. So watch this space, I guess.
Well, let me do this, because we're getting close to the end of our time. I can't believe how quickly the time has gone. But I always give guests an opportunity to let listeners know where they can find out more about you, about this book, and about things that you have coming up. Do you have a website?
I don't have a website, but my publishers, Penguin Random House, Pamela Dorman Books, they have a great one which has some information there, and you can get hold of a copy of the book anywhere where books are sold, really.
Well, I'm now very anxious for the movie to come out. I wish I could watch it with you to see your reaction. I'm not sure when it's coming out. My understanding is it takes a while for things to get put in place. But very exciting. Well, Gail, thanks so much for spending this time with us. I appreciate it very much.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me to talk to you, Tom. I've really enjoyed it.
All right, you take care.
Thanks, you too. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. That was Gail Honeyman. She is the author of a book. It's been out since May of 2017 in hardback, but it's now out in paperback, called Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. We'll have more of the Tom Sumner Program straight ahead. Another 5-minute mystery. An anniversary party is going on at the Brown household around the corner. One of the guests, George Taylor, pauses while eating his dessert. Best lemon pie I've ever tasted, Mary.
Oh, really?
I wish my wife could do as well. Hey, it doesn't look as if Sam is appreciating it much, though.
Goodness, dear, is my cooking that bad? Sam, your head is practically in your plate. I guess he's fallen asleep, everyone. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Sam, sit up. Sam, it's dreadful. I'd better shake him. Sam!
Great guns, he's dead.
How do you do? I'm Sergeant Barker, the Homicide Division, and this is one of my boys, Mike Grady. Where's the body?
In the dining room at the table. We didn't move him.
Might as well be comfortable, everybody. This'll take just a little while. Dead, all right. Peaceful, too. Who's Mrs. Sam Brown?
I am.
You mind telling me what happened?
I guess not. I'm so shocked. I don't know where to begin or what to tell you.
Well, you might as well begin by telling me what you served for dinner.
Well, we had soup first.
Soup? What kind?
Mushroom. And then roast chicken, green peas, mashed potatoes, and I served him coffee. But I don't see how this could mean anything.
Just routine, Mrs. Brown. Did Mr. Brown eat everything?
Yes, he did. He seemed to fall asleep over his coffee. And when I tried to wake him, I found he's had a heart attack.
Yeah, that'll be all for a few minutes, Mrs. Brown. We want to take a look around. Notice anything about this table, Mike?
No, Chief. Can't say as I do.
Neither do I. Let's look in this kitchen. An orderly person, isn't she? Stacked dishes after each course.
Yes, and here's the silverware over here. Ah, look, Chief. One of these soup spoons has turned black.
Black? Let me see it. The only spoon that's tarnished, too. Well, I was beginning to think it was a heart attack or the perfect murder, but this silver soup spoon is evidence enough. Mrs. Brown?
Yes, Sergeant Barker?
I'm sorry to interrupt your little party, Mrs. Brown, but I'm sure your guests won't mind.
I don't understand.
You will, Mrs. Brown, you will. You see, you're under arrest for the murder of your husband.
Do you know why Sergeant Barker accused Mrs. Brown of murder? In a moment, we'll hear the solution. And now, back to our story. Sergeant Barker, how do you know it was homicide?
Well, Mrs. Brown took careful pains to wash the soup pans and soup dishes before she served the rest of the meal.
Yeah, I can see that.
But she forgot one thing, to wash the silver soup spoons. What she didn't realize was that an hour later, by the end of dinner, the spoon her husband had used to eat his toadstool soup would give her away. She didn't know that toadstools make silver turn black. Mrs. Brown almost committed the perfect murder, but she forgot to wash one spoon.
This 5-minute mystery featured the voices of Sean Cantwell, Rhonda Groves-Young, Randy Zimmerman, and yours truly, Tom Sumner. We hope you've enjoyed this mini mystery.
I remember the night Mom was pounding on her drums. She called me to her side. She said, "Son, you're growing up. Pretty soon you're gonna drive." And Daddy heard the commotion and came in tap dancing, playing his 6th string. And they both looked at me and they said, "Son, before you get behind the wheel of a car, you listen to me. If you're texting while you steer, don't drive. If you've been drinking beer, don't drive. If you're talking on the phone, don't drive. If your tires are bald and it's starting to snow, don't drive. If your foot can't reach the pedal, don't drive. If you're wearing no apparel, don't drive. If you took an illegal prescription, don't drive. And no one understands your diction, don't drive. Don't speed, don't read, don't breathe, don't tweet, don't shave, don't rave, don't wave, don't eat, and don't put no makeup on or shave. You know you're not supposed to do that. If you gotta do something you're not supposed to do, you can go ahead and step on my blue suede shoes. Go ahead and scuff them up. If you're driving with your knees, don't drive. If while you roll you eat, don't drive. If you don't know how to drive, don't drive. If you've been psychedelicized, don't drive. If you're kissing on your boo, don't drive. If the boo's kissing on you, don't drive. If you've been drinking at a bar, don't drive. If there's guns in the car, don't drive. Don't groom, don't shave, don't tweeze, don't nurse, don't voice these things in your ears or rummage through your purse. Don't do that. If you won't do something you're not supposed to do, you can go ahead and tug on my Fu Manchu. Go ahead, I don't care. Watch me tear. If you feel like a nap,
don't drive while you sleep.
If there's a pooch on your lap,
oh, it's dangerous and creepy.
If you're feeling really wired, if your license is expired,
don't you drive around the town.
To do something you're not supposed to do, you can go ahead and step on my blue suede shoes, scuff them up, then go ahead and pull on my Fu Manchu. Yeah. If you want to do something, you want to do something that's good. If you're feeling like any of that stuff, don't drive. Make sure you got a clear head. Ow. Suck it.
Comedian Bruce Baum with some tips on what not to do when you're driving a car. Coming up at the top of the hour, 5 minutes of news. Sean Cantwell is standing by the news desk in Lapeer with news headlines that he's following for you this hour on the Tom Sumner Program. And when we come back from news, we're going to talk with the author, New York Times bestselling author Martha Conway, about her novel, The Underground River. It's been out for a while, like the book we talked about this hour with Gail Honeyman, but it's out now in paperback. And some pretty interesting. It's a historical novel called The Underground
The
River.
Tom
We'll
Sumner
be back.
Program. Old-fashioned radio for a new generation.